Whenever we're entering any information about archaeological sites or disturbances and threats into the database, it's always important to record where that information comes from. Let's have a go and look at how we do this for imagery hosted by Google Earth. If we look at this image by DigitalGlobe, acquired on the 20th of the 8th, 2017, we can have a look at how we enter this information into the database. The first thing to do is check that that image is not already recorded in the database. And we can use this or do this using the time filter. We've described how to do this via another search tutorial, but if you select the time filter from the search function and enter in the date of this imagery, pressing add, if that image was recorded in the database, a record would come up below. In this case, we have no record for that particular image taken by DigitalGlobe in the database, so we have to create a new record by going to the Resource Manager and the Information Resource drop-down. This opens up a new form and we can start to fill in some information. The first thing we need to do is select the resource type. Look under the drop-down list and select the most appropriate type, so in this case, satellite imagery. We can then select the format. In this case, it's online access. If in doubt, check the glossary for some of these terms, and once you're happy, press Save Edits. We can then fill out a little bit more detail about the imagery itself that we're using. In terms of the Google Earth imagery, we most likely won't have a catalogue ID, but we can enter in the source from a drop-down list. So in this case, we can enter Google Earth Pro and press Add. If we check back in Google Earth, the owner or the source will actually be indicated below. In this case, it's DigitalGlobe, and we can type this into the creator/owners box, copying the format in Google Earth and then pressing Add. For some imagery, we have a lot of detail about the sensor or camera model, but in terms of the imagery hosted by Google Earth, we often don't know this information. Still, it's important to put something in the box to record that we haven't just missed this set of data entry. So in all these boxes, image details, post-processing resolution and processing type, we simply put unknown. What we can add, however, and is very important, is the acquisition date. This is the date that the image was actually acquired and taken. It's the date that appears in that timeline on Google Earth. So in this case, it's the 20th of the 8th, 2017. And once we've added this information in using the calendar, we can press Add. We can then select the copyright type. If relevant and you had a file date, you might also add this information, but copyright is really important to include because then we know how we might be able to use the imagery in the future. Once we're happy, we press Save Edits. Can then go and check that there's no other relevant bits of information we can record. But the most important thing to do before you leave this record is to relate it to the archaeological site that you're recording. We can do this by selecting the Related Resources tab from the left-hand side. Using the attribute filter, we can search for the archaeological site we're recording. So in this case, we're typing in Cyrene, and we are going to select the East Necropolis of Cyrene from that drop-down list. We can then say that this imagery shows the East Necropolis of Cyrene by creating a relationship linkage between the two records. So we select on relationship type, select Heritage Resource to Information Resource from the drop-down list, add that relationship, and then save your edits. Once you've done this, this information will appear elsewhere in the database. We'll have a look at this in a minute. So if we go back to the home page, we can then actually go to the search page and search for the record of the East Necropolis of Cyrene. So simply type Cyrene in here and select the site you want from the drop-down list. So it appears as East Necropolis of Cyrene with its name. If we select this record, the overall record for Cyrene or the East Necropolis of Cyrene appears, and we can scroll down to the very bottom. Here we'll find Related Resources with a little Add button. If we click on that Add button, all the information resources that are related to this site will appear. And we can double check that the information that we just recorded, so in this case the DigitalGlobe from the 20th of the 8th, 2017, is actually appearing there, as it is. So we've now correctly linked the different resources together and also shown you how we can search for these both before and afterwards when we've entered the information into the database.